Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of our entitled parents. In today's episode, I was out of town and EM expected me to magically appear to babysit her daughter. Drop everything and be my nanny for a year. Dog-obsessed entitled parents bring in an uninvited dog to our house and gets their deserved karma. EM wanted my kayak. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I was out of town and EM expected me to magically appear to babysit her daughter. I used to babysit for neighbors while in high school, and it was good money. Entitled parents were around, but I only had one, and for time's sake I am calling her Mrs. Pest. Her kids were great, but the mother. Yeah, there is a special place in my memory for her, and most of it was funny as hell. Now she had at the time one girl, 6, and one boy, 12. The boy stayed with his dad most times. So I rarely had to babysit him, and when I did, he pretty much didn't need to be told twice to do anything. He was my helper in most cases. One time I had a band trip with my school. I was doing symphonic band and jazz band. I was going to be out of town for 4 days as the competition was regional. I told the families I babysat for that I was going to be gone between Thursday and Sunday. They all wished me luck except for Mrs. Pest, who was in her own universe. From the time I left on Thursday evening to Sunday, the woman called our house non-stop asking for a sitter. She was told I was out of town, and the woman told my mother these excuses, and yes, my mom actually remembered this. Cast Mrs. Pest, M, Mom, D, Dad, and Sis, my sister. Thursday night. Mrs. Pest, can OP babysit Saturday night? I have a girls' night? M, no, she's gone till Sunday evening. Mrs. Pest, but she's my only sitter. M, sorry, but OP needs this for a grade. Bye. Friday night. Mrs. Pest, is she still not back? D, no, please leave us alone. Mrs. Pest, I need OP to babysit when she gets back on Saturday. D, she's coming home Sunday evening. Mrs. Pest, I heard Saturday morning. M, Sunday evening. Please just hang up. FYI, this was back before caller ID. Saturday evening. My mom said she showed up at our front door. Mrs. Pest, look, I need a sitter. I have ladies' night out tonight. This isn't fair. M, neither is showing up to our door expecting OP to be here to watch your kids. Call your ex-husband. Mrs. Pest, why not have your younger daughter watch my daughter? I'll pay her. Sis, no, I have modeling and acting classes tonight. M, please find someone else. Sunday evening. M, please stop babysitting Mrs. Pest's kids. She called me nonstop and then harassed me on Saturday evening. OP, okay, that was my only answer because I heard it from Sis about all this. Out of all the 3 families I babysat for, Mrs. Pest was the very first person I ever had to blacklist from asking me to babysit. The worst part was she was a neighbor, so we saw her every dang day until we moved. She never again asked after that. So, I go one high school trip for band and my parents had to deal with a client of mine. Somehow she couldn't remember what day I returned home on, and for 3 days she called my parents asking if I was free to babysit. I never babysat after that. Drop everything and be my nanny for a year. This is a story about my aunt and her entitled BS. She was always a bit eccentric, but she completely lost her marbles once she had her first kid a few years ago. She had him pretty late, at 39, and her birth was pretty traumatic. I suspect she suffers from undiagnosed PPD, but I'm not any kind of a professional, so I can't know for sure. A little family dynamic context: I have 2 older sisters, and our parents divorced about 16 years ago when I was 8. My sisters were 12 and 17. We don't have any contact with our father because he's not a very nice man. This aunt is his younger sister. My paternal grandma had always perpetuated this weird dynamic of golden child/scapegoat, and everyone on that side of the family just followed it, no questions asked. My oldest sister was the golden grandchild, and my middle sister was the scapegoat. I was mostly ignored, but that also brought in its own issues. They treated my middle sister terribly when she was a teenager, making up terrible things about her, and how my mother was doing a bad job raising us. The things they said were pretty heinous, and I honestly don't want to repeat them. This made my sister call out this behavior, and she was ostracized for it for years. Then my sister got married to a man who does pretty well for himself and moved overseas. Suddenly she was the favorite grandchild. My aunt had her kid 3 years ago. She's full on yummy mummy, wanted a natural birth, diffuses essential oils all the time, etc. She also had a very good career beforehand and was respected as an expert in her field. Anyway, my sister is living her life, building a career of her own in this country that's about 16 hours of flight away, living her best married life. My aunt called her one day when the kid was about 6 months old and tried to get her to move back to our country to be a nanny for her for a year so aunt can go back to her career. She even offered to pay her. She harassed my sister for weeks until she started to ignore her messages and calls, and my aunt gave up later. Other requests my aunt had for my sister: buy her kid one of those toddler-sized battery-powered cars and bring it over here on the plane. She didn't offer to pay for that. Buy some purebred puppy and fly it out here. She won't be paying for that either. She even calls my sister at ungodly hours because she forgets that time zones are a thing? Just to chat about nothing. I'm really glad that everyone ignores me, and I'm currently getting the silent treatment for not calling often enough. Or whatever. But I really feel for my sister. Dog-obsessed entitled parents bring in an uninvited dog to our house and gets their deserved karma. Background: one of our friends' family DMK, D equals entitled dad, M equals entitled mom, K equals 9-year-old kid, is taking care of one of their friend's dog for a month as their friend is traveling. They intend to later adopt a dog, and so they use this opportunity as an experience prior to adoption. Meetup plan: we were supposed to have a 3-family meetup at a friend's house for the July 4th weekend, and the DMK family suggested, in a group chat, that they intend to bring their dog also, and so it would be best we host the party since we had a backyard. We were put on the spot and didn't want to appear petty, so we unwillingly okayed to host with the expectation that the dog would be in the backyard. Day of the meetup. The DMK family arrives and put their dog in the backyard. Everyone go to the backyard and play with the dog for a while. Kay throws some of my son's toys to the dog, and the dog happily bites and damages them. While mildly infuriating, they aren't expensive, so I let it go. As we are returning back in for drinks and food, Em opens the backyard door enough to let the dog in, and says loudly that the dog is fast, and she couldn't control. A few minutes later, as the dog goes out, I close the door because the AC needed to be turned on. Later on, D says that the dog is getting bored and requests us guys to move to the backyard so we can have the conversation there. We move out, but Kay keeps opening the door and lets the dog in occasionally and out. Later, when we all move back in for food, Kay keeps complaining the dog is feeling lonely and wants to let him in, but Em asks him to first finish food and then she will let him in. And when she did, the dog kept jumping over the couch and occupying it. At this point, I have given up and kept hoping they will leave soon. Karma time. Close to the end, when the other non-entitled dad goes to get something from the car, Em opens up the front door to the dog to let it enjoy the front yard without the leash on. The dog barks at a pedestrian walking his dog and almost starts to attack the other dog. The terrified pedestrian shouts to scare away the dog and scolds Em and tells her to keep her dog leashed. When this is happening, almost all the guests are outside. Kay feels bad that his mom was scolded and comes and tells the other non-entitled mom what happened. I defend the pedestrian and say that the guy shouted at his mom only because he was scared for his dog's safety, and he had no bad intention. K then goes back to his mom outside and asks why she opened the door without the leash on, and how she can be careless, further embarrassing her. I hope they learned their lesson. We definitely learned a lesson that we need to set expectations clear early on. EM wanted my kayak. Throwaway because her daughter, my friend, uses Reddit. I live in an area with a lot of water. There's tons of places to kayak/canoe/jet ski/etc., so most people who live here have their own recreational boats or toys. My boyfriend and I recently got a barely used two-person kayak at a garage sale for a steal and were eager to try it out. My friend doesn't really get out on the water too much, so she doesn't have their own boats, but did want to tag along, so we went to a spot where you can rent or bring your own. Unbeknownst to us, her mother and younger brother wanted to tag along. This wouldn't have bothered me if they weren't the most insufferable people on the planet. The rental spot has a bar, so by the time we got there, they were already pretty shit-faced, at 9 a.m. We decided forego drinking until after we ride and started to get our boat out on the water. I hop into the front seat and wait for my boyfriend to park the car and come back. My friend K, EM and her son, S, come over to boat launch, and EM is disappointed to see that they didn't have any two-person kayaks left, and that S in here will either have to use singles or share a canoe. Seeing me floating a few feet away in a two-person kayak set her off, and she yelled for me to get out and get this damn canoe. By that time, my BF was wading through the water to get to me and politely offered that maybe if at the half mark to the lake, if she was too tired that we could switch, but that we wanted to use our own kayak. She demanded that because she was the adult in the group we had to do what she says. We're 28, haha, she's in her 50s. My BF laughed awkwardly and just hopped into the back of the boat while the rental attendants looked annoyed as hell. Because we were only in like 2 feet of water at this point, she drunkenly charged through the water and grabbed my arms, trying to drag me out of the boat. K was already behind her, pulling her back and yelling at her to stop, while S stood on the shore chugging the last of his beer. The attendants yelled for her to knock it off and waved over security, while my boyfriend was already dragging her out of the water. He tossed her off to them, K apologizing over and over. As pissed off as I was fine seeing that crazy woman get thrown out of the park with her son. K had to leave with them, since they couldn't drive home, so we thought. We took off on the boat and came back a few hours later. The attendants told us she started another fight in the parking lot, tried to come back inside the park to drink some more, and eventually was carted away in a police car after she started throwing rocks at people. Anyways, I enjoyed my day and don't hold anything against K. Gonna try again this weekend. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.